Kai pressed his eye against the telescope's eyepiece, adjusting the focus with a precision born from solitude. The Perseids had peaked weeks ago, but still streaks of silver tore across the August sky. The control panel beneath his fingers was warm from hours of use, his notebook already half filled with data entries. At 34, Kai had long abandoned city life for the sanctuary of stars. No politics, no peers. Just silence, gravity, and light. Then, the sky exploded. An unnatural flash ripped through the horizon, followed by a thunderous shockwave that made the observatory's windows shudder. Coffee sloshed across his logbook. Military channels erupted with scrambled voices. Unknown craft down in Sector 7. Converge on coordinates. Repeat, all units converge. Sector 7. That bordered Kai's property line. He grabbed his emergency kit, keys, and flashlight, heart pounding. The ATV roared to life beneath him, tires flinging mud as he sped through pine-lined trails. Minutes later, smoke guided him to a clearing where twisted metal lay embedded in earth. Flames hissed against rain-damp leaves. Amid the wreckage, a figure slumped against a boulder. Kai's breath caught. She couldn't have been more than 16, wrapped in the tattered remains of a silver suit. Her skin glowed faintly blue under firelight, ethereal and wrong in a way that made him forget how to breathe. Long, dark hair clung to her cheeks, and her ears curved slightly, not human. And yet, not completely alien either. She stirred. Violet eyes opened, glazed but alert. Blood streamed from her forehead. "Please," she whispered, her voice strangely musical. They will dissect me." His training screamed protocol, report, contain, step back. But her voice cracked like a plea from another lifetime. He knelt beside her. "Can you walk?" She tried. Failed. Slumped into him. Kai lifted her into his arms. She fit against his chest as if she'd always belonged there. Behind them, helicopters roared. Searchlights swept the forest. But Kai turned away, carrying her back toward sanctuary. At the observatory, he laid her on the medical cot. His hands worked quickly, cleaning the gash, stabilizing her breathing. "What's your name?" he asked. Her lashes fluttered. "Vera. And you're kind. I feel it." Outside, searchlights passed like ghosts. For days, Kai barely slept. He kept her hidden in a windowless room and patched her up with the supplies he had. She burned with fever and whispered things in a language that sounded like wind and moonlight. He watched over her. On the fourth morning, Vera woke. "You stayed," she murmured, surprised. "This is my home," Kai said simply. She touched her bandaged head. "Your medicine works. But your presence, it's stronger. It grounds me." Kai laughed softly. "Guess you aliens aren't as cold as we thought." She smiled faintly. "We sense emotion. Yours, it's heavy. But not cruel. You lost someone." He froze. "Elena," he said after a pause. "My wife. 2 years ago. Cancer. You loved her deeply." He nodded. Vera's hand reached out, brushed his. "Some wounds never close," she whispered. "But some stars return." And in that small room, surrounded by silence and secrets, Kai realized something dangerous. He didn't want Vera to leave. For the first few days, Vera rarely left the storage room. Her healing accelerated rapidly. Kai suspected her biology operated differently than human systems, regenerating in ways that defied his understanding of medicine. But he didn't push. Instead, he spent long hours reading in the chair outside her door, pretending to work, pretending not to notice the shadows of her movements under the doorframe. On the 6th night, he found her in the observatory's main dome, barefoot, silhouetted against the moonlight flooding through the glass-paneled ceiling. Her violet eyes reflected the stars. It's quieter at night, she said without turning. Your machines sleep. Kai chuckled, stepping forward slowly. They do. I don't. She looked at him then. He was struck again by how human she seemed, not in appearance, but in posture, in pain, in presence. Your world is so loud, she said. Even when it's silent. The noise is in your hearts. He moved beside her, hands tucked into his jacket pockets. What do you mean? You all carry grief like it's a badge of honor, she said softly. Where I come from, we feel pain, but we don't hold it so tightly. We release it to the stars. Kai was quiet for a long time. Then, Elena used to say that, too. That pain shouldn't become a home. Vera nodded. Then she was wise. He glanced at her sideways. Do you remember everything I tell you? Everything important. In the days that followed, Vera began emerging more. At first, she moved cautiously, exploring the observatory in slow steps. Kai watched her from a distance as she examined shelves of books, the piano, the telescope. She moved as if each object might hold meaning. What's this? She asked one afternoon, standing before the old radio transceiver. Cold War tech, Kai replied. I used to tune in for meteorite data. And sometimes, just to hear a voice. She touched the dials. Lonely work. Sometimes. But it teaches you how to listen. She turned to him, eyes narrowed thoughtfully. We don't talk as much as you. Not with words. How do you communicate, then? Vera touched her chest. With presence. Emotion. I can feel what you're feeling most of the time. Even now. She nodded. You're sad. And you're afraid. Of me, a little. Kai didn't deny it. Instead, he said, what else do you feel? Curiosity. Longing. Guilt. Guilt? You think letting me stay might be a mistake. Maybe it is, he admitted. But it's the first one that feels right in a long time. On the 9th night, he woke to the sound of music. Vera sat at the piano, her back to him. Soft, slow chords drifted into the night like a lullaby for ghosts. He approached without speaking. I remembered the song you played, she said. I didn't think you were awake. I haven't slept. He sat beside her. They played together for a while, no words, no mistakes, just sound and space and shared silence. When the melody faded, he turned to her. Why were you running? Because staying meant death, she said simply. Not just mine. All of us. She explained then, how her planet, Marnai, had fallen under attack by a rival faction. How her people were hunted for their empathic gifts. How she escaped with coordinates given to her by an older Marnan who had once visited Earth. A forbidden route. And now you're here, Kai said, barely a whisper. For now, she replied. But they're searching. I can feel them. It won't be long. He looked away. The thought of losing her was more than his heart could take. Stay as long as you can, he said finally. No one needs to know. You'll be punished. Maybe. But right now, this feels like the only truth I've known. She reached out and touched his chest. Then let us share what little time we have. It started small, the way she brushed past him in the kitchen, the lingering glance before bed. The subtle brush of hands while passing a tool. The nights grew longer. Colder. And Kai began to feel warmth again, not from the furnace, but from Vera. She took to wearing his old flannels and socks, awkwardly too big. He found her humming in the garden, tracing the frost-rimmed leaves with reverent fingers. She cried once when she saw a deer and its fawn by the stream, unable to explain why. We don't have animals like that, she said. Not anymore. Kai found himself telling her everything, about Elena, about the life they'd planned, about the day he lost her. The worst part was the silence, he said. It filled every space she used to occupy. I can still feel her here, Vera said. You can. Like a whisper that never left. Your love was strong. And hers still echoes. One night, after a long walk through the snow-dusted woods, they returned to the observatory and she placed her hands on either side of his face. Kai, she said, her voice shaking, I need you to know, what we feel, it's not mimicry. It's not sympathy. It's resonance. I know, he whispered. And then she kissed him. It was soft, tentative. Her lips cool from the wind, her body light against his. But the warmth that bloomed between them was undeniable. Not a spark, but a hearth. When they pulled apart, he saw tears in her eyes. This is dangerous, she said. I know. But it's real. I know. That night, they lay beneath the dome, watching stars drift. She curled against him, head on his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of a heart beginning to hope again. You humans, she said sleepily. You build monuments out of your memories. We try. I think I understand now. Why you hold on to pain. Because sometimes, it's the only proof that love was real. He stroked her hair, unable to speak. And in that moment, with her breath warm against his skin and the cosmos watching above, Kai realized what it meant to live again. In the weeks that followed, Kai and Vera moved in sync as if they had always shared space. Their days were filled with quiet routines, preparing meals, reviewing astronomical data, fixing the aging observatory infrastructure. But their nights were sacred. Beneath the open dome, they lay together wrapped in blankets, sharing thoughts, memories, and unspoken dreams. Vera spoke more of her homeworld now, revealing pieces she had held back in fear. Marnai wasn't always like this, she said one evening. There was a time when it was filled with gardens that sang. Literally. The wind passed through our foliage and made music. Kai turned toward her, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. You miss it. Yes. But not more than I would miss you. Those words sank deep into him. He pulled her closer, his lips pressing against her forehead. You're a miracle, Vera. Miracles always come at a cost. 3 days later, it began. While calibrating the telescope's signal array, Kai noticed fluctuations. Irregular pulses of radiation, not from a known satellite or celestial event. At first, he dismissed it. But the pattern became rhythmic, deliberate. A call. Vera stood behind him before he even spoke. They found me. How can you be sure? She reached toward the console, adjusting the filter range. Hidden within the data was a carrier wave, a distress beacon unique to her people. I feel them, she whispered. Like distant thunder in my bones. Kai's throat went dry. Then we hide. Deeper. You don't understand. My physiology is linked to them. It's why they were able to design our ships to return on signal. Wherever I go, they will follow. But what about us? He asked, voice cracking. She looked at him with pain in her violet eyes. That is why I must leave. To protect you. He turned away, overwhelmed. All the loss he tried to suppress clawed back to the surface. No, not again. I can't watch someone I love disappear. Vera touched his shoulder. Kai. I will not disappear. Not entirely. Don't do this. I must. But I won't leave you with nothing. That night, she lit candles around the observatory, small flames flickering like stars brought down to earth. Kai watched in silence as she prepared what looked like a ritual. At its center was a translucent disk about the size of his palm, pulsing with dim light. What is that? A memory seed, she said. My people use it to store emotional imprints. It's not much, but it will hold the essence of our time together. When you need to feel this again, hold it to your chest. He approached her slowly. You're already leaving. Not yet. But soon. The signal is too strong. They will be here within days. He took the disc and placed it gently into a box lined with velvet. It felt too precious to touch again. That evening, snow fell quietly. They lay together for what they knew would be the last time under a sky alive with stars. She traced constellations on his skin with her fingertip, naming them in her language. Kai, she said, her voice trembling. If I asked you to run away with me, to escape into the void, would you? He didn't hesitate. Yes. Even if it meant never returning to Earth? Yes. Even if it killed you? He paused. Then, no. She smiled, sadness etched in the corners of her mouth. Good. I wouldn't forgive myself if you died for me. He cupped her face, forehead resting against hers. Then stay. Please. I want to. But my people, they need to know I lived. They need to believe there is hope beyond war. Hope doesn't live in galaxies. It lives in people. In us. Then hold on to that hope, Kai. Even when I'm gone. On the fourth night, the hum returned. A low vibration thrummed through the observatory. Kai rushed to the dome. Overhead, the stars rippled. Something shimmered against the darkness, a sleek ship, silent and luminous. Vera stood behind him, now dressed in her original silver suit, freshly repaired from her own technology. She looked regal. Ethereal. A creature not of Earth. It's time, she said. Kai's heart cracked. I love you, he said. She touched his lips. And I love you. In a way my people never understood before you. Will I ever see you again? I will try. She pressed her forehead to his, their breaths mingling. But remember, some stars do return. He followed her to the clearing where the ship descended. A hatch opened, spilling warm light across the snow. She turned to him one last time. Kai, remember your stars. Remember our story. Then she stepped into the light and was gone. Kai stood alone in the clearing, the scent of ozone in the air, and the snow falling silently around him. And above, the stars wheeled endlessly, waiting. 10 years passed. Not all at once, not in any clean sweep of time, but like rainwater carving a path through rock, slow, relentless, impossible to undo. Kai remained at the observatory. He never left. The town assumed he'd gone reclusive from grief. They weren't wrong. He grew thinner. Lines mapped across his face like the topography of sorrow. His hair, once dark, had turned to silver by 44. He kept the observatory running with grants and old research partnerships. But it wasn't about the work anymore. It was about the stars. The waiting. He kept Vera's memory seed on his desk, untouched in its velvet case. Some days, he stared at it for hours. Others, he couldn't bear to look. The pain of her leaving had etched itself deeper than even Elena's passing. Because Vera had promised to return. He started recording notes to her. Small things. The weather. A meteor shower she would have loved. A passage from a book. His voice was hoarse with age, but the recordings helped. Kept her real. Sometimes, he would listen to the old tapes of her playing the piano. The keys always sounded different under her hands, like the air itself harmonized with her touch. Humanity changed around him. First contact turned into cultural exchanges. Marnai was no longer a myth, but a diplomatic partner. There were documentaries, debates, interstellar symposiums. Kai watched them all, looking for her face. He never saw it. Then came the war. 6 years after Vera's departure, a splinter faction from Marnai launched attacks on Earth colonies. Misunderstandings spiraled into conflict. Kai followed every transmission. He read every casualty report. He feared her people had turned on her. Then, silence. For years of political standoff. Ceasefires. Cautious truces. The galaxy reset its breathing. Kai aged with it. Winter settled into his bones. His eyesight faded, but he still knew the stars by name. On a cold October night, lightning shattered the hills. A storm knocked out power across the county. The observatory fell into silence, backup systems humming like the breath of ghosts. Kai lit candles, prepared for another lonely night. And then, the signal came. He was at the radio telescope when it happened. A rhythmic pulse broke through the static. Musical. Familiar. His breath caught. He tuned the receiver. Refined the band. Heart thundering. It was her. The cadence of the signal matched her people's empathic language. He had memorized it in those weeks they spent together. His hands trembled as he tracked the signal. It came from directly above. Kai ran to the dome. Rain streaked the glass, but through it, he saw the light. Not harsh like a military ship. Not bright like a meteor. It descended gently, like a thought whispered to the earth. The craft touched down in the clearing where she had first crashed. Kai stumbled into the cold night, slipping on wet stone, heart racing like it hadn't in years. The ship was smaller. Sleeker. Graceful. When the hatch opened, she stepped out. Vera. Her robes shimmered with an internal light. Her hair, longer now, was adorned with crystalline strands that caught the rain and scattered it like prisms. She stood tall. Composed. Regal. But her eyes were the same. Violet. Endless. "Hello, Kai," she said. His knees buckled. He caught himself on the railing. I thought you were dead." "I nearly was," she said. "Many times." He stepped forward. Stopped. He wanted to run to her, to pull her close. But something in her posture held him back. She had changed. She carried gravity now. History. "You've changed," he said. "As have you," she replied, taking him in. "You look tired, my love. Worn down by waiting." He laughed bitterly. 10 years. I waited 10 years. I know. And every moment, I carried you with me. She stepped closer, slowly, like approaching a wounded animal. The war kept me from returning. And when it ended, my people needed me to help rebuild. To help translate hope into policy. Kai's eyes burned. But you came back. I kept my promise. Inside, she moved like a ghost remembering its home. Her hands trailed over the piano. The bookshelves. The velvet box on his desk. You kept it safe. I couldn't open it, he admitted. Then open it now. He did. Inside, the memory seed pulsed faintly. She touched it, and it brightened. It's time, she said. Time for what? To give you what I promised. She reached into her robes and drew out a second object. A crystalline orb, no bigger than a fist. It glowed from within, swirling with soft light. This is a memory weaver. Kai stared. What does it do? It reconstructs emotional echoes. Not just sights or sounds. But everything. Scent. Texture. Warmth. Elena? Yes. She looked at him gently. She left a deep impression here. In you. In this place. Her essence lingers. The weaver can let you hold her again. For moments. Kai's breath hitched. Why would you do this? Because I love you. Because you loved her. Because love doesn't diminish when shared. It grows. What did it cost you? She looked away. Everything. My title. My world. This tech is forbidden. I was exiled. Kai reached for her. Pulled her into his arms. You gave all that, for me. For you. For her. For us. Later that night, she activated the weaver. The room shifted. Elena appeared by the piano, playing their song. Her laughter echoed. Her presence was whole. Kai stepped forward, tears falling freely. Elena? Hello, my love, she said, just as she had 10 years ago. He reached for her. And she was real. For an hour, they lived again. When the weaver dimmed, Vera stood quietly by the door. Kai turned to her, shattered and whole all at once. She was perfect. I know. He crossed to Vera, took her hands. And so are you. You don't have to choose. I won't. He kissed her. It tasted of starlight and grief. Of return. Outside, the storm cleared. The stars blinked down like old friends. Kai had waited a decade. And now, she was home. The next morning, the observatory woke slowly, bathed in the pale glow of a new day. Frost clung to the windows like delicate veins, and the world outside was hushed beneath a thin sheet of snow. Inside, Kai stood in the kitchen boiling water, his hands still trembling slightly from the night before. Vera appeared at the doorway, her robes exchanged for a simple sweater and pants, both borrowed from his old wardrobe. They didn't quite fit, but she looked radiant nonetheless. Her eyes found his instantly. You didn't sleep, she said. I didn't want to wake up, he replied. Not if it meant losing that moment. She walked to him, took his hand, and pressed it to her cheek. You haven't lost it. Not with the weaver. Not with me. Kai nodded, trying to believe her. They spent the morning tending to the old observatory together. Vera insisted on fixing a broken panel on the telescope roof, and Kai was amused by how naturally she took to his world now. No longer the unsure girl hiding in the shadows, she had returned as someone who had carried the weight of galaxies and still chosen love. He found her seated later at the piano, her fingers moving over the keys with a slow grace. This time, she wasn't playing one of their songs. It was something new. Something hers. When she noticed him, she paused. I want you to know something, she said. The weaver, it wasn't just a way to honor Elena. It was also how I remembered you. Every time I felt like I was fading, I used it to recall your face, your voice, the way you looked at me when you thought I wasn't watching. Kai swallowed hard. And now? Now I don't need it. You're here. In the days that followed, the observatory came alive again. Vera made changes to the layout, carving gentle curves into the sharp corners of human design, adding soft lights that glowed with her people's bioluminescence. She planted small crystalline growths near the windows, living conduits of memory, she explained, that would react to strong emotional currents. If you ever feel like the silence is too loud, she said, these will hum. They will remind you that you are not alone. Kai sat with her beneath the stars each night. Sometimes, they would use the memory weaver. But not often. Vera was cautious. The weaver must be used sparingly, she warned. Or it becomes an escape. Not a bridge. He understood. Pain was a part of memory. And so was healing. One night, Vera found Kai in the garden, seated on the bench where he had first watched her wander through frostbitten leaves a decade ago. She sat beside him, resting her head on his shoulder. You still miss her. I always will. And yet you love me. I always will. She smiled softly. You humans are complicated. So are you. I used to believe we were above this kind of emotion, she said. But you taught me that love isn't a flaw. It's an evolution. He turned to her. So what now? What happens to us? We build a new world together, she said simply. A quiet one. But not empty. A message came weeks later. A diplomatic shuttle requesting Vera's return. Not under arrest, but for reinstatement. Her exile had not gone unnoticed. Her people now saw what she'd done as an act of unprecedented peace. They want you back, Kai said. But I want to stay. What if you could do both, he asked. And so they decided. Vera would travel to Marnai, present the memory weaver to her council as proof of what love between species could become. Not a weapon. Not a violation. But a gift. Kai would wait. I'm good at waiting, he said. I won't be gone long. Promise? She cupped his face. I broke my first promise by taking too long to return. I won't break this one. She left 2 days later, the ship lifting into the sky like a sigh. And for the second time in his life, Kai stood beneath the stars watching a woman he loved vanish into the cosmos. But this time, he wasn't alone. This time, he had hope. Vera returned in spring. Not in a sleek scout ship, but aboard a vessel shaped like a spiral of living crystal. It shimmered with life. With memory. Kai met her at the landing, breath stolen by the sight of her. This time, she ran to him. They didn't speak for a long time. Just held each other in the sunlit clearing. It worked, she whispered against his chest. What did? The memory weaver. Not just as technology. But as testimony. They understood. The council didn't just lift my exile. They asked me to build more. For others. Others? For those who have lost. For those who are afraid to love across species. For those who need to remember. Kai kissed her. So we make them together. Together. They transformed the observatory into something new. Not just a place of science, but of feeling. Of memory. Guests came. Human and alien. To remember, to heal, to learn. And on some nights, beneath the stars, Vera would play the piano. And Kai would watch her, knowing that across a decade of grief and silence, love had survived. Had evolved. Not by forgetting the past. But by weaving it into the future.